History is often told in broad strokes: wars, treaties, and leaders. But the real forces shaping nations often move unseen, beneath the surface. The story of modern China is not just about what happened, but about what was prevented, and the strategic choices made in the shadows. The familiar narrative of China's economic miracle, cheap labor, foreign factories, and open markets, misses the core truth. China's rise was not passive. It was a masterclass in strategy and pragmatism. To understand China's ascent, we must look behind closed doors at the calculated decisions of the Communist Party. This was a grand experiment, embracing market dynamism while maintaining state authority. China didn't simply open up, it curated its engagement, controlling capital, ideas, and influence with precision. We'll explore how China learned from others' failures, forged its own path, and unleashed historic growth without losing its grip on power. The rise of China was no accident. It was a deliberate, long-term strategy that reshaped the global order. To grasp China's transformation, we must return to the late 1970s, a nation scarred by Mao's rule, isolated, and impoverished. The Cultural Revolution had shattered institutions and left the economy in ruins. Nearly 1 billion people struggled daily for basic necessities, with the state controlling every aspect of life. Collective farms bred inefficiency and food shortages. Cities were stagnant, cut off from global markets. China's per capita GDP lagged behind many of the world's poorest nations. Mao's death in 1976 left a leadership vacuum and a population exhausted by hardship. Reform was risky. Hardliners feared any deviation from socialist doctrine. Into this uncertainty stepped Deng Xiaoping, a pragmatist who believed the party's survival depended on delivering prosperity. He famously said, "It doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice." This signaled a radical shift results over ideology. The stage was set for an audacious economic experiment. Deng Xiaoping's reform and opening up in 1978 was not a blueprint, but a willingness to experiment, crossing the river by feeling the stones. Instead of sudden overhaul, China tested reforms step by step, managing change and learning from mistakes. The first breakthrough came in agriculture. Collective farms were replaced by the household responsibility system, giving families incentives to produce more. Food shortages vanished, millions escaped poverty, and stability grew. Next, China created special economic zones, laboratories for capitalism, where foreign investment and modern management were welcomed. Shenzhen, once a fishing village, became a symbol of explosive growth. These reforms unleashed new consumers and freed labor for factories. By allowing limited economic freedom under firm political control, Deng found a formula for growth without chaos. The dragon was awakening. As China reformed, the Soviet Union tried its own changes under Gorbachev, glasnost, and perestroika. Both aimed to revitalize socialism, but the outcomes diverged dramatically. Gorbachev prioritized political openness, unleashing dissent and weakening the state. The Soviet Union collapsed under the weight of simultaneous political and economic upheaval. Deng Xiaoping, wary of chaos, insisted on economic reform first, under absolute party control. Debate on policy was allowed, but challenges to party rule were crushed. China opened its economy but kept its politics closed, ensuring stability. The Soviet Big Bang approach proved fatal. China's gradualism succeeded. The lesson: economic freedom is possible, but only if the party remains in control. China learned from Moscow's failure and charted its own course. Stability, not ideology, was the foundation of China's transformation. China's model blended authoritarian power with market dynamism. The party set strategy, picked industries, and mobilized resources on a massive scale. The market operated, but always under state supervision. Key sectors, banking, energy, telecom, remained in state hands, serving national goals. This hybrid system harnessed market efficiency while directing investment and suppressing dissent. The government could execute long-term plans with unmatched speed and scale. Corruption and inefficiency persisted, but the formula delivered growth and stability. China proved a capitalist economy could thrive without democracy, challenging Western assumptions. For decades, China's global engagement was tightly managed. But in 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization, marking a turning point. WTO membership meant lowering tariffs, opening markets, and accepting global trade rules. Many feared foreign competition, but leaders saw it as necessary shock therapy. The gamble paid off. Foreign investment surged, exports exploded, and China became the world's workshop. Hundreds of millions rose from poverty. Coastal cities boomed. For the West, cheap goods flowed in, but manufacturing jobs vanished, fueling resentment. The China shock rewired the global economy, making China indispensable to world trade. WTO entry didn't just transform China, it changed the world's economic landscape. China's integration was both a triumph and a challenge for the global order. China's boom triggered the largest migration in history. Hundreds of millions moved from rural villages to booming cities. The hukou system managed this flow, but migrant workers remained second-class citizens, lacking full access to services. This underclass powered the factories but lived in legal limbo. As reforms advanced, calls for political change grew, culminating in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. The government responded with force, crushing dissent and sending a clear message. Economic reform would continue, but party rule was non-negotiable. International isolation followed, but the party doubled down on growth, betting prosperity would outweigh demands for freedom. The ghost of Tiananmen haunts China, a reminder of the party's red lines. Stability and control remained paramount, even as the economy soared. The iron fist stayed hidden beneath the velvet glove of progress. By the 2010s, China's leaders knew cheap labor was no longer enough. The goal shifted: move up the value chain, invent and brand homegrown technologies. Ambitious policies like Made in China 2025 targeted robotics, AI, electric vehicles, and telecom. Chinese firms like Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent became global leaders, sometimes surpassing Western rivals. This was no accident. It was a national strategy for technological dominance. As China's power grew, so did its ambitions. The Belt and Road Initiative aimed to connect continents, build infrastructure, and expand China's influence. China began shaping a new, Sino-centric global order, challenging Western dominance. New institutions like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank signaled China's intent to rewrite the rules. China was no longer just a participant, it was becoming a global architect. China's rise is a story of strategy, not just economics. The real lesson's success came from state control, market adaptation, and ruthless timing. China proved prosperity, and modernity don't require democracy, offering a new model for the world. The China model challenges the Western belief that history leads to liberal democracy. China's leaders played the long game, learning from rivals and making incremental gains. The most powerful forces are often hidden strategies, assumptions, contradictions beneath the surface. China's ascent was guided, not accidental, a masterclass in national strategy. In the great game of nations, it's not just about a strong economy, but a clear strategy and the will to execute it.